Bacon makes it
Unique.
bacon makes it better.
Bacon makes it better. You know it's not hard to say? Swan Market. It's called Segway.
Okay, so
Okay, Blue Grill.
It's hard to
welcome
say.
to another meeting. My name is Kevin McCann. I'm a butcher.
Jason Ellsworth. I don't know what I am. Outdoorsman, butcher, chef, who knows?
He's my dear friend, is what he is. And today we're joined by another one of our dear friends, somebody that we both look up to and what he does, both in this industry and in this city. Barry from Swans. Barry, how you doing today?
I'm good today, thank you.
So I've come here since I've been in Rochester. Jason does
I've been
a lot
here
with you.
since, I remember vividly the first time I walked in here, I was 21 years old and
How old are you now?
45, 46 in a
So
couple
this is
weeks.
just before I bought the place then.
I remember.
'Cause I bought this. I bought it in 2000.
Yep. So I was here. Jimmy Mack brought me here because Jimmy Mack and Stu DeBay were buying all their stuff here, and I was pretty much like, "You're here to like not say anything, like just shut your mouth."
Just
like
shut
I was
up
a
and watch.
21-year-old kid, and Stu, who was the psychology teacher or professor at Brockport, had a relationship with Gunther, and they would speak German back and forth. And Jimmy Mack would buy stuff here to bring back to the shop, and it was just like, I remember they asked me what I wanted for lunch, and I was like, the only thing I really understood at the time was like goulash. I was like, oh, my mom makes goulash, and just sat back and was not my mom's goulash. It was really awesome.
Yeah, not hamburger goulash.
No, there's no corn in it. My mom put corn in goulash. I don't know what the hell she was thinking, but
Well, I mean, corn's delicious. But let's go like several steps backwards. Why don't you tell us how you got here and what it was that made Swans the sort of career path that you chose?
Well, I'm not a corporate guy, so I did Wegmans. I did Wegmans for 17 years.
okay.
From I think started in like '83 at Wegmans. Went in as as just a service meat clerk. You know, went into the apprenticeship, made my journeyman, back room runner, first cutter, manager. I learned. I value what I learned at Wegmans. They taught me how to run a business. You know, how to manage your inventories and whatnot. And but I did struggle with the corporate part of it.
Yeah, I think
I wasn't really good at saying, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea."
Yeah.
You know, I kind of would say, "Well, you know, I'm not sure if I agree with you on that,"
Yeah.
and you can get labeled kind of as negative. Now, I was always a good employee. Actually, when Wegmans first started giving out the Employee of the Month, I was one of the first ones to get it. So
Which store?
I
were you
worked
at?
hard. I've always worked hard. Anything
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, you're one of the hardest working guys I know.
Which store? God, I was at so many different Wegmans
But
stores.
you were at
Back-
Brockport for a minute, right?
I was at Brockport
Yeah.
for a time. Yes.
That's my my one buddy. Still won't come. I'm not going to name his name.
Well, Russ.
Still won't come in here because he worked under Barry, and when we were in college there, he would give us, strip loin, like steaks,
On
New York
low.
strip, as like ground. So that was like,
And I think I catched him.
he caught him.
The old manager special.
Oh, he caught him, and I don't
And
think you
did-
fired him.
And I
think,
didn't. No,
like,
I didn't. I
you-
didn't. I think I swept it under the rug, but it was.
Been there, guys. Done that.
But one of my dearest
Yes.
friends.
Be smarter.
Right,
Steal
right. Yeah.
smarter.
Don't be a dumbass,
Well,
man.
you know,
It's like, in
those
front of
are-
me, dude. Come on.
Yeah,
Sure.
those are
You know.
good lessons to learn as a man.
Absolutely.
So, like, you
Okay, so Wegmans training the youth of America to be better thieves, and then it went to where?
So I got to a certain point. I made the meat manager. I went from this store to this store, and I was working my way up. But I started generally at Wegmans. If you're starting as a meat manager, you're starting in a small store. And I started at Driving Park. It was a city store, and it was right during the time that they were rolling out their oven-ready things.
Okay.
And they shoved it down my throat, saying, "You got to give up this much of your counter, and put this stuff in there, and take the time to make it." And take the, but it didn't sell there. People in that neighborhood were looking to feed their families as cheap as they could.
Yeah.
I couldn't even sell that stuff when I reduced it. So
And that wasn't through value-added product. That was through as cheap as it could be, and they were going to do it.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. Offal. That's what we sold. We sold the offal. Hawks and just all that. And
So I
the best gross profit.
So I was working for a meat packer in Manhattan, but I lived across the river in Union City, which is the highest Cuban population outside of Miami, Florida. And the grocery store is there, the little bodega food out there. It's the best memory I have of there, and it's all awful offcuts.
Oh yeah.
Utilization. So it's
Yeah,
great.
but your margin on that is just crazy. So here's where I had the problem with they didn't treat each store like it should be treated, and they didn't really let the managers, I think at that time, manage their store. And so I said, I could have the best gross profit in the company there if you leave me alone. But you take and you make me sell this, and then I reduce it, and I'm already losing margin, and then I have to throw it away.
Yeah.
So my shrink was crazy, and then you have to answer for that. So in that respect, I didn't agree with how they ran things. They said, well, it worked at Pittsford. It was like, yeah, this isn't Pittsford. Yeah. And that's where I would get myself into trouble because, they would come in and say, well, what do you think about this? I go, well, yeah, it's great in Pittsford, but it's not going to work here.
Different when your boots on the ground.
Yes. So all of a sudden you get like, oh, he's always like, arguing with us and stuff like that. But no, you ask me my opinion.
Sure.
I give you my opinion. Yeah. I don't
so
sugarcoat it.
Wasn't right. So corporate wasn't right, and you ended up moving on to what?
My father-in-law knew a guy who was in commercial real estate. We started looking around for a butcher shop, and we looked at what was it? It's another German market.
Rheinblick?
Zimmerman's.
Okay.
Because they had closed down and they had a facility, but just wanted too much money for it. And then he put me in contact with Gunther, and I came in and met him, and I was like, "This is pretty cool." And I started coming in here on my days off and working for him for nothing, to see if it was
the story of so many butchers.
To see if it was something that I wanted to do, see if it was going to be for me or not. And then not long after that, I was like, "Okay, we make a deal." We made a deal, and here we are. Since then, Gunther held the paper on this, and I paid him off, and and then I said, "Oh, I made the deal with the devil," because I knew he had this Mercedes sitting in his garage.
This is great.
And I said to him one day, because I knew that he didn't really have an income or much money saved. I said, if you sign that car over to me, I said, I'll let you live upstairs for the rest of your life. For nothing.
Yeah.
And
that was how many years ago?
And so this car cost me like $60,000. Because this was 12 years ago.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
he's still around.
And he's still around, yeah. But you know what? I mean, he helped me so much in my first years, just making contacts with people and teaching me the sausage business, because I didn't really know the sausage business.
Sure.
I considered myself a pretty good butcher, and I knew, that made it an easier transition into it. But at Wegmans, they'd had the time when they brought in the sausage stuffers, and you were doing a little bit, but, nothing like, making, 3 different liverwursts and blood sausage
So
and
was
head cheese.
was Wegmans your first opportunity cutting meat, or had you done things previous to that?
So I grew up on a farm.
Where'd you grow
up? Down in the southern tier.
Okay. What town?
Dundee.
Dundee. Okay. Yeah.
So
Sure.
So we had a farm.
Just there,
We didn't farm for a living,
That's
but
where
we farmed.
the hog roaster.
Oh,
It came from
Meadow Creek.
the Mennonite store right there.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyways, keep going. Sorry about that.
So we would raise our own animals and feed ourselves.
Yeah.
So we would raise our beef, and honestly, it's how I bought my first car. We would buy calves, we'd raise them, we'd fatten them up, and then we'd sell them.
Yeah.
So my brother, older brother, actually set up a custom meat cutting shop in our old milk house. And so, yeah, I was, probably at the age of 15, had a knife in my hand and was just doing miscellaneous stuff. So, around it all my life. I went to Alfred State College, took a food marketing course, just a 2-year degree, and met my wife there. Moved up here. I worked. I got a job at Spicy Butcher, which was down in Panorama Plaza.
Topless Butcher Shop.
No, thank God. But I worked in there with a couple of guys for a time. It was kind of like their little bitch kind of thing. And I worked for Coretta Beef for a time. Yeah. And then I was working at Coretta Beef, I got a part-time job at Wegmans, and that's how I got into the meat department there. But a funny story here is because I did have good knife skills. At night I was a part-timer at Wegmans working service meat, and there was always a journeyman meat cutter on.
Sure.
And this is back in the day when they used to bring in the primal cuts. So at night we would break rounds and stuff like that, and I'd always say, "Hey, want to race?" And this guy was a good butcher.
Sure.
And we would peel H-bones out and race doing it. Yeah. And we would have to keep going. We would have to keep going until he beat me. But then by that time we broke way too many rounds, and we'd cut shit for it and stuff. But
that's great.
So,
I love that.
That was a good story.
Yeah. So how many years have you owned this now?
I'll be almost 23.
23, and you're still considered the new owner.
Still considered the new owner. Yes. Not so much. I mean, I get less and less of that, but it's still kind of a joke that we make.
It's always been a funny thing to hear.
It is a funny thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're like the standard bearer in town for sausage, period. And it's, I mean, and rightfully so. I mean, it's funny because sausage with hunting is something that we're going to end up talking about a lot.
Yeah.
And you work with a lot of hunters
to
do sausage, right?
Right.
And one of the things that hunters try to do right coming out of the gates is make sausage, and there's steps that they miss. There's parts of the process that they are unaware of and uneducated into that certainly play a huge role in the quality of what they're going to produce.
Easy for a big fail.
Sure.
Yeah.
So why don't you talk a little bit about sausage? Because I mean, it's your specialty. You don't got to get into it too much. You don't got to give away any secrets or trade.
I mean, sausage is about I got to say, number one is what kind of seasoning and what is your flavor on it. That's the number one thing that people are gonna think. But to make a good sausage, you just have to use good meat. You can't. Hunters come in and they think, oh, this is good. I go, no. I sent many hunters home with their meat saying, no, I can't use that. I'm not making sausage out of that.
Right.
I'm really fussy about what I put into it. It's just a matter of using quality product, and
that's both flavor and food safety.
Absolutely. Seasoning is huge, and the mixing of your seasoning and getting some good recipes.
Mm-hmm.
But you know as well, keep it cold while you're making it, as cold as you can, for your binding purposes.
What's the ratio of liquid that you're going to add to a mix, or just roughly? Because some guys are going to add like ice water or crushed ice. Some guys are going to add
on what you're
just
making.
The water. Right, agreed. But
I don't add any liquid to my fresh sausage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Zero.
Okay. I was taught to.
Yeah.
And the reason is for three things. Well, four things really.
Mixing,
you're gonna love the
mixing
last
purses.
one. So dispersing the spices throughout, right? Dissolving it all, so you get a little bit more of an even mix, right? Two, you're making an emulsion, right? So you're trying
if you're making an emulsion,
even just a fresh sausage, you're still trying to emulsify meat and fat together so that they bind.
Well,
right?
correct.
So
right.
so that's still it's a loose emulsion, but you're still making
right.
it. And the water is what helps make that bind happen, right? It helps to denature some proteins and so on and so forth with the salt. But then this was the cooking thing, right? A little bit of extra liquid will help it kind of steam from the inside and cook even. And if you prick holes in the casings, it gives it a place to escape, and therefore it's not going to pop when you cook it. But the guy who taught me, his thing was, I love selling water.
Sure.
Yeah.
absolutely.
He goes, what am I charging per pound for this sausage?
Yeah.
How much water did I just put into that? I love selling water.
Right.
It's
Right.
great for the bottom line.
I'll tell you.
But like that was the old
I mean,
school butcher trick,
that
right?
absolutely.
He wasn't putting any he wasn't putting like breadcrumb or anything
Right,
anything
right,
like
right,
filler.
right.
But he had all of his legitimate reasons for the water. But then he
It's
kind of gave you the
give
wink.
you the wink. He's like,
It's
yeah.
amazing cooking your sausage like in a frying pan and seeing how much liquid comes out of it without adding liquid to it. Like, there's a good amount of like moisture coming out of that
Yeah, I
stuff,
mean, like when you make hot dogs and things of that nature, yes, water
Yeah.
in that in the form of ice, because you have to keep the meat cold for the chopping,
Yeah.
to keep her binding. But yeah, I've never put water
How about
into.
fat content? Where do you stand on, just for like your standard hunter? You just brought something in and he wants to make a venison sausage.
So we go 50-50 with pork butt.
Okay,
I try to find the fattiest pork butt I can when I do venison.
sure.
I'll
And a standard
I'll go
pork
to as
butt-
far as taking the lean cuts out of a butt,
Mhm.
because I use them for chopping and things of that nature. But venison is so lean to begin with. Ideally you want to get some fat in there. Otherwise, you're going to have a dry sausage.
So are you trying to get to like a 70-30, a 75-25?
Yeah, I mean, I
80-20?
think with venison, I think if you're talking venison, if you can get to an 80-20, you're probably
Yeah.
doing good, and that's going 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the same thing with our regular pork sausage. I think that I don't like it to be leaner than 80%.
Yeah.
That's the dryness, right? That's
yeah.
the sandy.
Absolutely,
that's-
yeah, and then
Yeah.
and less flavor. I mean,
Sure.
your flavors.
And the nice thing about pork too, and it's one of the things that maybe the hunter isn't necessarily considering, but pork itself is a softer protein in general, so it's gonna make the bite that you eat just a little bit more palatable to chew on as well.
Well, also, yeah, I mean, it has more moisture in it as well than beef,
Sure.
right?
We for years and years and years would have a sausage party, like when.
No,
But
Yeah.
it'd be the end
Yeah,
of the year.
you invited girls to the sausage party?
It was topless sausage party.
Okay.
Bear.
Here we are.
It's weird you didn't get invited. But the idea behind it was like everybody'd have their grind from the year, and like we'd meet up in January, February. It was still pretty cold outside in my parents' barn, and there'd be 10, 12 guys show up, and we'd make a few 100 pounds of sausage in a day. And it was always funny because my old man would be like, "All right, who's the most sober here? All right, you're on the grinder." But it was our sausage recipe, the one we were talking about before. My old man found, I don't know, like 25, 30 years ago in a book, and it flipped out, and it was his great grandmother's book, and it was. I remember picking it up, and it was like so. Like it could have just flaked apart in my hands, but it was the venison
the
sausage
old
recipe on
C-scroll,
it.
right?
But yeah, it's exactly what it was, and I was like, I think we have to make this, and that's what we made forever, and it was awesome. But it was at the bottom of the line. It was like the last ingredient was one cheap beer, and he goes, well, "We got a lot of that." So
That's that wink. That's the old school.
It'd be a 12, 13-hour day.
Sure.
And the guys that showed up at the end were just coming to pick up their stuff, but it was like, you can't just drink beers all day and expect to be like a super productive member of the team.
Right.
So they'd start at like 8, and like it'd be me and the old man in the barn at like midnight, and like just the headlights coming in. You guys all set? Let me just grab my buckets and get out of here. And that kind of, after years and years doing it, started rubbing the wrong way. And we would process, he and I, every year probably 50, 60 deer between the two of us, and it was always friends and family stuff, and that had to come to a abrupt stop. My mom's family's all sheriffs out in Shields and Marion. That's where we processed the deer, and she came home one day to two. It was kind of a culmination of events that stopped the processing. The old man thought it would be a good idea to like take all the grind that we had, 100 and some odd pounds that was frozen, and put it on her brand new washer and dryer, and it looked like helter skelter the next morning. So that kind of like led into we're not doing this anymore. To the next event was
Mom ain't happy no more.
Mom was not happy.
No.
She came home with 2 dead doe in the driveway.
Sure.
Like just like blocking the driveway, and lost her shit. as she should have. There's no tags on the deer, nothing. It's like, what the hell's coming? Like, what's going on here? This is, like any one of my brothers could have pulled in, sheriffs. Like, no, like we can't do this anymore. And it turns out that my old man's cousin had MS and couldn't fill out his tags. So, like, he killed those doe in the morning and, like, just left him in the driveway, called the old man, never got the message. But that was it. Cha-chunk, it's over. Like, done. No more deer at the house.
And, when I was processing deer, I mean, I had the DEC. He would come every night and check tags.
Yeah.
And there was a few times that whether people got too comfortable, that they decided that I wasn't home, but they just left their deer in my driveway.
Yeah.
And I would figure out who it was, and I would call him and say, "Come get your deer."
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't do that.
Can't do that.
Yeah, that's not cool.
You can't. I'm in a residential neighborhood, and they would just dump it off.
And that's the story that you hear from a lot of processors.
Oh, yeah.
They're just like the respect that the hunter sometimes shows the animal that they killed in how they treat it, and then in how they treat you and how they drop it off also isn't cool. And that's like a piece, like Jason and I have talked a bunch, like
reverence.
The hunter itself has to up their game.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You see those, I always have, there's always something inside of me that's like slightly annoyed by like why would you kill that little buck? Why would you, like, you shot that doe, all the shit, like, why, like, and then just leaving that to the processor, which is like another shitty thing to do. It's unfortunate that I think that's like a black eye to the hunter. Like, how many, like, we're looking at all those deer, I'm like, why would you shoot that deer? Or like, we passed that deer up and like, or shot it freaking 4 or 5 times.
That's the worst, you get somebody that brings in like a fawn. That year's fawn, and they shoot it. I once gave a guy his meat back in a shoebox.
Yeah.
Literally. I went inside and got a shoebox and go, this is funny, but it was still $60.
Yeah.
Here you go.
My old man's trick was to
right? He shot it all to pieces. It was small to begin with. And literally, because I did everything boneless, I didn't have a saw.
Right.
And I went inside and got a shoebox.
Sometimes you just got to make a point, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah. My old man's trick was when guys didn't properly eviscerate their animals, like
they wrap it up and put the asshole back
my
in.
god,
I did that
he
many
vacuum
times.
packed assholes like it was his job.
It.
Tenderloin, boy.
Vacuum packed assholes like it was his job.
So like 4 or 5 months later, some guy would call me like, I don't know what this is. He's like,
it's got poop in it.
It smells like poop.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, I would.
So let's talk, because like the processing part is a part of what you have done, right? And
correct.
The retail part of the business obviously was where everything started. Recently, within the last couple of years, you opened up another facility so that you can do a USDA mass production on sausages to be able to send things out. So why don't you talk a little bit about like the difference between the retail operation and that essentially manufacturing operation that you have, and like how that like growth of your company has like manifested itself.
Well, I mean, as the years came on for the market here, so I bought in 2010 is when I bought the other building, and started a renovation, which took me a number of years because I wasn't ready. I couldn't afford to just have somebody come in and do all this work. So there was years of my electrician buddies helping me, my HVAC buddies helping me, put 2 coolers and a production room together, and then acquiring the equipment, and then finally getting the kahunas enough to start.
Sure.
Dealing with writing a HACCP plan,
that's a process.
I had somebody write it for me, and
that's the only smart thing to do.
And it is smart.
As far as like the scientific documentation of it, you got to understand what your critical points are.
Well,
and
correct.
your hazard analysis,
but there was also the woman who wrote it, and it worked for me. But as time has gone by, my inspectors would say, "Yeah, you don't need this in here. If it says you're going to do this, you got to do it. I'm going to check, but you don't need to do that." So we slowly, with the help of the USDA inspectors, have trimmed it down to a little less paperwork.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, I think really the biggest difference between, USDA and retail production is paperwork.
Yeah.
Paper trail.
I mean, it's just that because they're still looking for the same things. They're still inspecting you on the same things.
Of course.
It's just the paperwork and where it's kept is a little bit different.
And
but it's good that they're doing it.
and compared to ag and markets, which come once a year, to the USDA, which comes every production day.
Correct.
Yeah.
And whether they stay the whole time or they're there for a minute, they're checking your records.
So what the product that you're making there, where is that getting distributed?
Yeah, I was going to say, which accounts?
So we use a lot of it here. It's just, it takes a little bit pressure off us, but a lot of restaurants, Genesee Brew House, Rohrbox, both locations, a bunch of little breweries. Honestly, after I'm going to be down and out for a few weeks, I'm probably going to hit the pavement and try and do a little selling.
Gotcha. So is the plan then to try to distribute into grocery stores? To expand to that level? Or?
So yeah, that was my original plan. Mm-hmm. When I left Wegmans, I said, you guys are going to have my shit in here someday.
Sure.
And not necessarily do I want it in Wegmans because how business is done sometimes.
Right.
But that would be, the next level would be getting labels made.
Yeah.
Labeling and nutritional facts and testing on shelf lives and all that stuff. And it's really not. I'm a sausage maker. I am not a paper pusher. It's my
If you're interested in any of that, one of my most dear mentors, Mark Aaliyah, down in the Hudson Valley, he had the Hudson Valley Sausage Company.
Right.
And he started with a little small shop in Highland, New York, and he developed it into a USDA sausage producing facility, and he was distributing to grocery stores, Adams, and other spots in the Hudson Valley and whatnot. Yeah. So he's got some experience on that, and just as far as like pointing you in directions and telling the hurdles he had to overcome, super nice guy, down to earth dude. You guys would be fast friends.
If you could just figure out how to ship me your stuff in places, that'd be huge. Because I feel like I'm getting ready to leave.
That's the USDA.
I'm getting ready to leave tomorrow, and I'm going to be I'm going to be gone for 45 days, and there's camps that, like, I always think like the guy in my head that like I just want to slide him the liverwurst from here. Just try this, or the meat.
So there's
sticks.
certain things in our USDA portfolio. Not everything that I make is in that. So yeah, I mean, but here's the other thing is that I'm looking forward to retirement.
Are you?
Well, I've been in this meat business for 40 years.
Yeah.
I'm getting tired.
Yeah.
And I want to enjoy retirement a little bit. I know I got 6 grandkids. I want to be able to watch their games and this and that So I mean, I'm not. It's not tomorrow, but I'm hoping within the next 5.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping I have a transition in place. My son-in-law and my son both are working here, and I'm looking like it's going to transition into that. But that's for them to decide where they want to go.
Yeah.
I consider it a family business. I didn't require it from a family member, but I feel like he's
everybody's
my family.
Crazy uncle. Yeah.
So in that, and I think that he would say the same about me.
Yeah, of course he would.
Now, I'm not sure how I would work in a partnership because I can tend to be controlling. They tell me.
What? Well, you just want it done right.
But here's the thing. I bought this place when I was 34 years old.
Yeah.
And I worked my ass off, and for the first 5 years, it was me and maybe 1 or 2 other people.
Yeah.
I love the idea about that, though. Let's focus on that for 1 second. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think that's really important for a lot of people. At 34 years old, after years of work, you decided to, in your own words, have the cojones and put your money where your mouth was.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
that's old school work here. Now you're talking about the way that these guys are going to operate too. So, are there other things that you have noticed in the industry, in ways that people work, in ways that businesses operate nowadays, that are different? Some better, some worse. Because I think that we all see a little bit better, a little bit worse, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think right now, people's whole outlook on, I'm going to make a lot of money, but I don't want to work hard.
Yeah.
I see that. And, in this business, you got to work hard. It does, it's not, and yeah, you get new machineries that make your life easier, I mean, when I first started here, my brick smokehouse, every piece of sausage that went out of this place was touched. I think I've counted it, probably close to 40 times before it went out the door. Between bringing the meat in, cutting the meat, then grinding the meat, mixing the meat, and regrinding the meat, and stuffing the meat, and hanging it on the racks, and putting it into the smokehouse, and taking it out of the smokehouse into the kettle, and out of the kettle into the cooling. And I counted it one time. It was like a crazy amount of touches.
Yeah.
And now, in my other place, it's like a rack full of sausage gets rolled in there, and it gets rolled into the cooler. And
Do you think something is lost in the automation, or do you think that
No.
some efficiency improves the process?
No, I think it improved the process, no doubt. Now, do I think that sausage that I'll make here in this store is a little different than what I make down there? Yes.
Okay.
Probably.
Qualitative differences.
I don't think in a quality-wise, no. I mean, I think our quality is the same. We do
There's something
this,
to be said about
but
that
it's
old
but it's
smoker.
but it's an old smokehouse,
Yeah,
and it's a little bit more hands-on touch, because it's not a push a button on a.
What year did that smokehouse
So
start?
cycle.
So if you can't necessarily put a finger on it, would you say that it's just the feel? It's just the emotional connection that you have with
It's
it
a
at
little
that
bit
point?
more of the old school and how I started. Like.
That's great. And there's something to be said about that.
100%.
And I think that's why people come here.
And in this smokehouse,
When did that fire up for the first time?
it was the mid-20s, I believe. This store was
So
built
100
in like
years.
26.
That's insane.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's nothing. That's where when people walk into this place, they feel something for it. You don't say the word Swan Market to like somebody and not have their like when the lunch conversation comes up, which I used to have a lot in the beer industry. Like, where are we going to lunch today? And the acronym would be WILT. Where's lunch today? And
like
it would
that.
be there'd be the the normal 3 places that popped up all the time, and it was most of the time you could sit down here and have a couple steins. And in my 100% expert opinion, there's no better food pairing than German beer and German food.
It certainly does feel like it was built, like purpose built.
They're perfect
Right.
together. There's perfect
Purpose
together.
built,
Like
right?
when you're biting into like a schnitzel, like crispy, salty, crunchy,
Yeah.
and like I haven't had my
Crisp,
mouth
bubbly.
is starting to water. I haven't had a beer in a year, in like a month or so, and now like you think like, and you hit that with like the perfect like old school German Pilsner behind it. It's perfect.
Yep.
It's perfect, and
We do sell a lot of beer.
makes sense.
Sell a lot of beer.
But like,
If you think
so take a great pairing,
Yeah.
like German beer, German food.
Yeah.
Take an obvious
Sage
great product
guru.
that is
I'm
made
not
by
trying
someone with experience and who learned from people with experience,
Yeah.
right? So traditional learning here,
Yeah.
right? The way it should be. Look at the environment that we're in right now, right?
Yeah.
So it's all of those. That's why I asked the question
It's the
about
perfect
like
soup.
if you couldn't put the finger on a qualitative difference on the actual product between the two facilities, if you thought that it might be just
it's more of a
it's here.
Well,
but again, like that's part of the product. Like the atmosphere inside of this
The
building.
smells
is
you're
part of the
smelling in
product.
here.
it takes you back to the beginning,
Yeah.
which was a happy time.
Mhm.
Still a happy time.
Still a happy time.
But
This is a lot of people's happy place. You don't
It
see
is.
too many
And they
people.
all
say
have a
that.
different happy time and a happy reason why
Yeah.
this is their place.
Right.
And that's cool too.
I mean, when you think about Rochester gems, this is the shining example of that. There's no There's no other place I love as much as this place.
It's kind of funny because people are always like, you should move to Webster. You should move to Pittsburgh. You should move to here. You should move here. And I look at him and I go, well, you should make it bigger. You should do this. I go, look.
It's perfect.
You can't move this somewhere and have it feel the same.
No,
Right.
no, it's perfect.
I really don't think you could.
No.
And
It's the same feeling that kids have when they go away to college and their parents sell the house and move away. They come back and they go, "Where'd my house go?" Right?
Yeah.
Like,
same.
this
There's
is
just something
this
missing.
Is home.
Yeah,
This is my house.
And I can tell you
100%.
that you're 100% right that there is, like, the experience adds to the flavor, which this experience here, from sitting around being taken care of by the wonderful ladies forever, and like having them ask how you're doing, like how this is going for you, like looking at the beer wall, like salivating over the sausage cases. There's not too many, like, as like what I'm doing now. Like, a huge part of my life was I wasn't allowed in I've told you this forever, like I wasn't allowed in hunting camps, like, without the beer and the sausage. Like, where's the sausage? All right, get it out, boy. Like, and it would always be funny to sprinkle in dragon's breath in there, because my old man would have one too many beers and then, oh shit, there was that dang dragon's breath in there, I told you. I'm like,
That's dirty.
it's dirty, but it's fun. But the experience it's something palpable,
Yeah. It's been a good ride.
And
Been a good ride.
the lunch service and the retail sort of commingling as it all goes too was something that I thought was brilliant, and I tried to mimic it to the degree that I did when my shop was open, because that sort of like barber shop feel that you get when you're in here because of it, right? The commotion, the activity, and all of it.
Yeah.
Everybody,
You never know who you're going to see.
it's funny because I have people, that used to come in here with their little kids, little ones, newborns, and now those kids are coming in and having a beer with me, which is like kind of crazy.
Well, Lainey has been in her whole life, like, and she used to, you guys used to give her chocolate off the wall, and that's still, like, she's 19 now, and that's still like, today I was like, going to Swan, maybe you want to meet for lunch, and she's like, we'll see, Dad. But maybe, then like 5 minutes later, who's going to be there? It's amazing to take a little bit of this place with you, and I think that's like one of my favorite things is, like, I'm going to the Sportsman Show tomorrow in Harrisburg. I'll be there for 5 days. You shit in a hat wrong to think that there's not going to be a shit ton of those snap sticks behind the booth the whole time. And that's a cool thing too, because like that's built rapport with me over and over again. With folks, I mean, like that was the first the reason I'm going to Harrisburg tomorrow is to go work with my buddy who owns that charter, and like the reason I'm working with him on the charter is because I fed him liverwurst on the boat and he lost his mind over it.
Never underestimate the power of the sausage.
I don't. I don't.
It's a powerful thing.
Sure is, and
mystical.
I have a special place in my heart for liverwurst, because again, the guy who I was telling you about in the Hudson Valley, that was his thing, was liverwurst, and so I got out here and I had yours, and I was just like, oh boy, I now I can have an emotional connection to this place too, right? I hated when people asked me this, and so I'm really relishing the opportunity to ask you, what is your favorite product that you make? Like so it's you're super hungry, you gotta eat something, you're going right into your retail case right now.
Bologna sandwich.
You're just
Bologna
going
sandwich. Yeah.
bologna.
Straight up bologna.
It's wonderful, right? Are you gonna go with your ring bologna? Are you
I'm just going to take a couple slices off of my bologna and throw it on a piece of bread. Maybe a little hot sauce, or maybe, I'm not a huge mustard person. Most of the time it's just kind of straight up.
okay?
Yeah.
I like it. You have a real old school bandsaw and a really old school case, and you have all of this like vintage, wonderful, beautiful stuff that it's some hipster butcher in a big city would probably come here and be like, I'll give you $1 million for that, right? But like this is, it's part of the feel of what's here. So like, do you have problems keeping any of that machinery up? Do you look into potentially replacing any of that stuff, or is
I have a grinder in here that that I've had since I was processing deer out of my garage, and had to have a new case built for it, and very small amount of work done on it. But if you just maintain those pieces of equipment, they just run.
The old stuff was tanks.
They
Tanks.
run.
Right.
That's that grinder we used down at what I was talking about earlier on, the place where we're processing our deer. That thing's from the early 50s.
Right.
The stuffer I have back here is probably it's got to be 50 plus years old. It broke one time.
Yeah.
I had and one of my customers, a German craftsman, took that, and I said to him, I said, Klaus, I don't think we can fix this one. He says, if man can make it, man can fix it.
Yes.
And he took that thing with him, and he put a bead of weld around that thing.
Sure.
And this is 10, 15 years ago probably.
Yeah.
Still running.
I love that.
It's
Still
interesting,
running.
the barter. And I'm sure there was some monetary transaction involved, but I'm sure there was some sausage that went along with that back to him.
Oh, majority sausage.
It was,
I think it was a matter of, you're in the book for this much, Klaus, because the materials that he had to do, it was all pretty much his time.
Yeah.
And it took him a long time because there's a bead around the bottom of that thing, and you would laugh because the thing, it was cracked a long time, and finally just, I was like, oh no.
So it's funny to see that barter system alive and well especially in the beer and brewery industry.
Small business.
I was introduced to that as an unwilling participant.
Yeah.
About 15 years ago, Gunther, I told him I had a hindquarter from an elk hindquarter. He's like, "It's me. I'll make you some amazing stuff." I'm like, "This is awesome, right?" And hindquarter elk is huge chunk of meat. And I came to a couple days later. He's like, "Yeah, it's all set." And he threw me a couple pieces of salami. I was like, "Where's it was Champlain? It was super freezer burn. We lost a lot of it." I was like, "All right, yeah, I understand." And then every one of the bars that I frequented, Jason, do you want to try some of this elk, the elk snapstick? Gunther brought it in. I'm like, son, so I got it back in one way or the other. But it was literally throughout the next 2 weeks. You want to try some of this elk snapstick? Gunther gave it to me. You son
I feel
of
like
a
we
bitch.
could do an entire hour on Gunther stories, just sitting at this table.
Which was just really funny.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I could fill many hours by myself with Gunther stories.
Good, bad, and everything in between.
Yeah, as a
My
whole,
word.
you gotta love the guy.
Right.
But it's
He's one that you sometimes have to separate the art from the artist sometimes to still enjoy him.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, that guy, definitely an artist.
Yeah.
When I first bought this, he didn't let me touch that chopper for the first half a year probably.
Mm-hmm.
Watch me.
Yeah.
And then we do something different, the same sausage, different this day. And I was like, and he'd be like, what are you doing? I go, well, we didn't make it like this last week. He goes, this is how we're making it this week.
Yeah.
But in that teaching, just taught you there's there's more than one way to skin a cat,
100%.
and sometimes you need to push it out quicker, but here's a way to do it and still have it come out good. So the teaching, that continued for 10 years probably.
Yeah.
That's
And after 10 years, finally he's not looking over my shoulder so much anymore. And now after 23 years, I every once in a while he'll cut my back fat for my blood sausage or something because he likes. I hate doing it because it's just a tedious job, and he loves doing it. That's his.
He's at a point in his career. He's like, I'll take the time to make it
make it
real.
nice and square and
Yeah.
perfect but
He's
he's one of a kind, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Well, very sorry, you man, and
for sure.
I really appreciate you letting us come in and take up some of your space, take up some of your
Yeah,
time.
that's fun.
But
That's fun.
as another butcher, as a hunter who has done work with you, we both, when we decided we wanted to do this podcast, one of the first people that we brought up was your name because it's just you're sort of like a connection point for so many people, certainly between us. So I really appreciate you, man.
Well, I was putting his sausage in my mouth, and I was like, Barry, we should talk to Barry. There's no sausage jokes? We haven't made one sausage joke, not one meat joke the whole time?
Yeah, but
it's
when
what makes the
when
world
you
go
say you're
round.
putting your sausage in your mouth,
Your sausage
that's
that
really
blunt.
not a
It's
good
your
thing.
sausage, and I put it in my mouth.
took us all the way here to the end to get to that. But really appreciate everybody coming in and tuning in to another meeting.
Well,
Barry, thanks very much again for letting
Oh,
us
you're
in.
welcome.
You guys
You're
are not
welcome.
going to make me feel bad about exposing a joke that we've been making for 20 years.
Listen, if there's anything that we're going to do on this podcast, it's make sure all of the exposure of you.
And the sausages. Yeah, well, you know what?
Sausage,
Like,
yes.
sausage exposure. Yeah.
See you next time. Appreciate you.
Sweet. All right, let me buy some meat.